Hello everyone. My son gave me a stack of brand new CDs, but they're completely useless. And that's when the DIY idea popped up. Why not turn the CD into a homemade antenna? As an electrician with 25 years of experience, I find this really easy. Let's get started. If you wrap a CD with aluminum foil tape, the effect can be quite interesting. The foil layer acts as a conductive surface that reflects signals, helping to improve reception while also securing any components attached to the disc. Thanks to the tape's flexibility, you can wrap it snugly around the CD without bending or breaking it. However, make sure to wrap it evenly and avoid too many wrinkles, as creases or tears can interfere with the signal or reduce efficiency. Overall, it's a simple and inexpensive yet effective way to upgrade a CD into a part of your DIY antenna. You know, my friend, who is an aerospace engineer, told me more details about the Apollo 13 story in 1970, and it gave me chills because of how dramatic it was. At that time, the spacecraft was flying hundreds of thousands of miles away from Earth when suddenly there was a loud explosion. Oxygen tank number 2 blew up, shaking the entire command module. The 3 astronauts, Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert, looked at each other in panic. Power was dropping, oxygen was leaking, and worst of all, CO2 levels started skyrocketing. They felt dizzy and short of breath. As if death was slowly closing in, the Houston Control Center was in chaos, with engineers working around the clock, calculating every second to save their lives. My friend said that the biggest problem was the CO2 filter. The lunar module LM only had round filters, while the command module CM had square backup filters. They couldn't use them directly, and if they didn't filter in time, CO2 would kill them before the oxygen ran out. The ground engineers, under the direction of Gene Kranz, held an emergency meeting and came up with a plan. Use the available items on the ship to create a temporary mailbox, an adapter to connect the square filter to the round system. They guided via radio step by step. Take cardboard from the flight manual, plastic bags and food, a pair of clean socks, and a roll of silver duct tape. That sturdy silver duct tape. The astronauts started working in the cramped space, their hands shaking from the cold and stress. They rolled the cardboard into a cylinder, wrapped plastic bags around it to make it airtight, stuffed socks in as padding, then used duct tape to layer it on, layer upon layer, ensuring no gaps for CO2 to leak through. At times, the duct tape was hard to stick because of the slippery Teflon surface of the canister, but they persisted, taping tighter, even adding extra ties. After a few hours of struggle, the mailbox was complete, and when connected, the CO2 levels began to drop. Lovell later said that moment felt like being reborn from hell to heaven. Thanks to that, they survived the dangerous journey and landed safely after 4 harrowing days. That story isn't just about technology, but also about human ingenuity. A simple roll of duct tape turned disaster into a miracle. Every action I take has a purpose, and everyone should watch the entire video to have an overall view, and then ask me questions in the comment section. In this part, I use a knife to scrape off the excess to make it neat and clean because I really respect the audience. That means we can move on to the next step. I take the spark plug, point the thread apart, that is, the metal section with spiral grooves like a screw, right into this hole. Then, gently twist the spark plug so the thread slides through the hole. Because the tape has already covered the hole, when the spark plug goes in, the metal thread touches directly against a foil layer, creating a firm contact. The result is that the spark plug sits neatly in the center of the disc, not loose, held tightly by the thread, while also ensuring the metal part of the spark plug connects directly with the aluminum tape layer wrapped around the CD. After being fixed with tape, I see that the spark plug is no longer loose, and we can move on to the next step. Making an antenna without a TV antenna wire. Then you better grab your slippers and go buy one yourself. I will cut a piece of wire about 50 centimeters long, equivalent to 19 and 11/16 inches, and if you're following along, please refer to this size because I had planned it before making the video. For those who are cutting a TV antenna cable for the first time, this is actually quite a difficult task. You will easily fumble around, not knowing where to start, where to cut, or how to do it correctly. But don't worry, because right here on the screen I will perform each step slowly and clearly. Just watch carefully, and you will learn a simple yet effective cable cutting tip, so that next time you will no longer be confused. Back then, her family's TV was practically the neighborhood's treasure. Not everyone had one, so whenever a big show was on, people crowded into her house. And me, the kid with pliers and tape in my hands, somehow became the official technician for the entire audience. Every time the signal went fuzzy, the crowd shouted, "Hey, call him! Tell him to fix the antenna." I felt embarrassed and proud all at once. Her father was strict but fond of me. One evening, as I crouched on a rooftop adjusting wires, he stood below, arms crossed, and shouted, "Being a man isn't just about fixing antennas. It's about keeping your balance. If you fall, how will you protect my daughter?" My face burned red, and for the first time, I dared to dream a little further. Another memory. It was drizzling. The antenna kept spinning wildly in the wind. I climbed up, shaky and nervous, until I slipped for real. I fell straight into a pile of straw. The whole neighborhood gasped, but she ran out, eyes wide, asking, "Are you okay?" My heart pounded faster than the fall itself. In that moment, I knew I would climb 100 more rooftops just to hear her ask that again. Once, I got zapped while repairing a socket inside her house. I forced a grin, trying to look tough, though my hands were trembling like crazy. She quietly slipped me a piece of cake and said, "Eat this, it'll help." Somehow, that little cake felt like the grandest feast of my life. Then came the night I finally built up the courage to invite her to the spring fair. But fate had other plans. Her father asked me to fix the TV. I spent the whole evening fiddling on the roof, while she went off with her mother to the fair. From the rooftop, I saw the distant lights of the festival, and all I felt was regret. And so you slipped away, without a single confession spoken. Now I'm still single, and she has 3 children. Yet whenever I look back, I can't help but smile, because at least in my 18-year-old heart, I once had an antenna princess. A story only I still keep. In this part, I thread the TV antenna cable through the hole that was drilled at the beginning of the video on the CD to make the antenna whisker for receiving signals. The humble antenna, a tiny metal hero that once ruled our homes. Don't let its size fool you. This little guy was a key to unlocking a world of crystal clear signals. When the antenna stood tall, perfectly aligned, it pulled in signals like a champ. Sharp visuals, crisp audio, pure magic. But if it bent, broke, or got nudged just a hair off, boom, fuzzy screen, static noise, and those annoying streaks that turn your TV into an abstract art exhibit. Back in the day, families would huddle around, twisting and turning that antenna like it was a sacred ritual, chasing that sweet spot for the perfect signal. Hours spent, sweat dripped, all for that glorious moment when the picture snapped into focus. Suddenly, the room erupted in cheers. Game on, movie night saved. That little antenna wasn't just metal. It was a bridge to epic football matches, tearjerker dramas, and shared laughter that lit up our homes. But in this video, I will bend the TV antenna cable using a step drill bit. Actually, many people will ask, wait, why don't you just leave the copper wire straight for convenience? Why bother bending it? It sounds reasonable, but I do have a proper reason. When you bend the copper core into a spiral or loop, the surface area exposed to electromagnetic signals will be larger compared to leaving it straight. Simply put, it's like spreading out a wider net to catch waves, instead of just sticking a pole upright. Furthermore, bending the wire with a step drill bit makes the loops perfectly even, not distorted. Thanks to that, the received signal is more stable, not flickering. This is also exactly how many commercial antennas out there take advantage. They never just leave a single piece of metal straight and call it an antenna rod. So trust me, this bending of the copper core is not just for looks, but it has a solid technical basis, ensuring our homemade antenna captures signals much better. This wiring step is really not difficult. You just need to focus, be meticulous, and need a bit of dexterity. You just need to follow for a while. Even if you are a beginner who knows nothing, you can still make your own antenna right away. Speaking of tape, many people tend to think that whatever sticks can just be wrapped around electrical wires, and that's it. But that's actually not the case. Only electrical tape, the black vinyl kind, is specifically made to insulate against electricity. It stretches, withstands heat, and most importantly does not conduct electricity, keeping connections safe and preventing short circuits and fires. By contrast, aluminum foil tape is an absolute no, because the aluminum layer conducts electricity. If you wrap wires with it, you might as well turn your house into a laboratory, with sparks flying at any moment. As for clear tape and paper tape, they're even worse. They peel easily, catch fire easily, and simply cannot withstand voltage. Now we just need to make an extra tool to secure this antenna in place. These things I've already prepared. And if you don't have them, then just think more broadly that you'll have to make an antenna base yourself like the one I have on the video screen. Hot glue and a glue gun are essential tools. Almost throughout my clips, I always use them, not only to temporarily fix things, but also to attach small details that tape or screws cannot do. Sometimes, just one drop of glue is enough to quickly solve the whole problem. No need for drilling or screwing hassles. Another great thing is that it dries very fast, sticks firmly. But if you need to remove it, it's not difficult either. Just heat up a bit and it's done. That is why in my DIY toolbox, hot glue always sits next to the hammer, screwdriver, and tape, like a silent assistant, but saving me in dozens of unexpected situations. After threading the wire inside, it's also close to completing the homemade antenna device. Now I will connect the remaining end of the wire so that it can link this homemade antenna device to the TV. Typically, there are two types, a straight F connector and a 90-degree F connector. The straight one is used when the cable runs smoothly in a straight line without obstruction, ensuring stable signal with minimal loss. Meanwhile, the 90-degree connector is very handy if the TV is placed close to the wall or when there isn't enough room for a straight connection, because it allows the cable to bend neatly while preventing the inner core from being damaged, a key factor in avoiding signal degradation. For installation, simply strip the cable jacket, screw the F connector tightly so that the copper core sticks out at the right spot, then plug it into the TV. If you're using the straight type, just plug it directly. If it's a 90-degree one, connect it at a right angle. And then that moment finally came. I plugged the homemade antenna into the TV and the signal lit up, the picture sharp and clear, the sound crisp. It's hard to describe that feeling. Before this, I had spent so much time measuring, cutting wires, bending the copper core, twisting and turning the antenna to find the perfect signal direction, and now all that effort paid off. I stood there watching the screen, sighing in relief, my hands still trembling from excitement, looking at the copper rays bent with the drill bit, the shiny foil tape, and the neatly installed F connector. I felt truly proud. The feeling of creating something that actually works perfectly makes you grin, like a kid getting a gift. I even tried lightly rotating the antenna, stretching it, tilting left and right, and the signal stayed solid, proof that every tiny detail I carefully adjusted mattered. The whole room felt more alive. The TV program sound came through clearly, the image crisp, and I thought to myself, you don't need an expensive antenna. With a bit of patience, some basic materials, and a little skill, you can make one that works perfectly. I even told a few friends, and they couldn't believe that this tiny homemade antenna could pull in such a strong signal. That feeling was both proud and fun, like conquering a tricky little challenge all by myself. And seeing the homemade antenna work so perfectly, I just want to say, you should try it too. With a few simple materials, some patience, and a little skill, you can make an antenna that pulls in signal just like this. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it so someone else at home can try making their own too. When you're done, take a moment to admire your creation. Grin to yourself like I did and tell your friends, I made this myself and it actually works perfectly.